Hello, and a warm welcome to the Reform Party podcast. Today I have a very special guest, Mr. Philip Kiszely. Philip's a long-standing academic and is currently Senior Research Fellow at the New Culture Forum. Now, many people think it must be easy to be a podcaster, but I'm sorry to say that today we had a major disaster when my computer crashed halfway through filming. For this reason, some of the video in the middle of the podcast is missing, and we've had to replace it with still images. I do hope that this doesn't spoil your enjoyment. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks, Ken, and thanks so much for asking me to come on. It's a real pleasure.
Well, as luck would have it, I was at a Reform Party branch meeting last night, and I finished about 9 o'clock, and I got in the car, and talk radio was on, and I was told that you were going to be on it. Now, I'm not going to do what Kevin O'Sullivan did last night, which was like a 5-minute introduction ending up with a closed question.
I'm on talk. I'm on talk an awful lot, as you probably know, and viewers probably, because most of your viewers probably watch or listen to talk as well. So I'm on Thursday nights with Kev, but I do other things as well with Mike Graham and Ian Collins and various other kinds of things. So yeah, I'm always there or thereabouts, but there are some long intros on that channel, certainly.
Julia Hartley Brewer does a few long ones as well.
She does. I mean, Julia, God bless her, she interrupts you when you're saying your name, so
it can't be underestimated though how much Talk and GB News and the other media channels that have come through and become popular, how much they have influenced the debate in the UK, and it's hard to think what it might have been like without them.
Yeah, I think they've changed the landscape completely. So I think about GB News, I think about Talk TV, I think about the independent media like New Culture Forum, where I work. Lotus Eaters and Trigonometry and all of those, Andrew Gold, all of the, and Dan Wootton, of course, all of the big independent podcasts with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of viewers, so really influential. And Talk and GB News as well. I think of them actually as I think of Reform as revolutionising things. Because if you remember, before GB News and before Talk became really massive, before it went on to television, there really was nothing. There was the mainstream media, BBC, ITV, Channel 4, and they were so captured, and it just felt so depressing. It didn't feel as though, one, there was a political alternative, or two, there were any platforms on which to have sensible debate, actual free speech and a variety, a marketplace of ideas. And I think the really great thing about the last 3 or 4 years is that has happened, that has flourished in all sorts of ways. So whereas things have got exponentially worse under Labour, the media stuff, and of course the development over Reform over the last 12-15 months has just been amazing, and I think that's a real source for celebration.
But we could not have done it without the media coverage from these people. I mean, if we had been forced to be relying on the BBC and Channel 4 to get our message out, we could never have done it. It's because these channels are now so popular with people, and people understand that there's more than one side to the thing.
Yeah, it's really changed, and you don't. I mean, I've got an inkling of how popular they are, because it's just like, when I walk down the street, people, and it's always, if I go into a pub, especially if I go into a Wetherspoons, right? Get lots of people saying, if I go into a Wetherspoons, but it's always positive. You know what I mean? It's always, well, they watch GB News and watch Talk TV. They watch it because they want to watch it. They don't watch it because they hate it. So but there are so many people. I think GB News, of course, Nigel has a show on GB News. So GB News is by far the biggest news channel. Talk has a massive listeners and viewers as well. And New Culture Forum too is huge. We've got I think, the best part of 400,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. And so we're a think tank and we're a media channel, but we're also a grassroots movement as well. So I run something called NCF Locals, which is our branches all around the country. So again, that kind of stuff just didn't happen a few years ago. None of it. We didn't have the Free Speech Union either, and I think that's something else that we should mention in the same breath. So I think of all of these things together, and this is what we are now. All we had before was a failing Conservative Party that really kind of didn't speak for us, was just reneging on all its promises and kind of gaslighting us really for years and years and years. That's what I felt anyway. I felt as though I was in an abusive relationship with the Conservative Party that was just gaslighting me, and I suspect many Reform voters now feel the same. So it does feel as though there is a change. It does feel as though there's a kind of revolution. It feels as though there's a revolution in the air, and part of that is because things are so bad. I mean, I've said this quite a few times. I knew it was going to be bad when Starmer and co. Got into office, but I had no idea it was going to be so incredibly bad, farcically bad, literally from, when they were freezing the grannies from the word go, and just from the hate marches every week, the massive anti-Semitism, the complete failure in terms of grooming gangs, all of that kind of stuff. Now we're recording this. It's on the Wednesday, isn't it? We've just found out that a fourth victim is now refusing to take part in the enquiry. It isn't an enquiry; it's an obscene farce. All of that kind of stuff. So it's, in a way, we're a response to that. And I suppose the worse it gets, the stronger we get, because there is such a need for us. There's a need for reform. My God, there's a need for reform. Everybody's pinning their hopes on reform, but there's a need for the independent media, the alternative media, and all the rest of it as well.
Yeah. I mean, you were on talking to Kevin last night about another inquiry. I'm going to call it the C inquiry. And the reason I'm doing that is I had Alan Miller from the Together Federation on last week. And I'm absolutely convinced the stats on his show should have been great because it was good content, but it was way down from normal. And I'm convinced it's because YouTube are still, I'm not saying shadow banning, but the algorithm's not doesn't work well if you mention the C word. So that's why I didn't even want to say it. But I mean, this goes back to COVID times when things really were, the censorship and so on was appalling, wasn't it?
It was the thing for me. It was the thing that changed everything. People ask me when. So I worked in higher education for 25 years, and they asked me, when did things start going crazy? And my stock response is, well, it's always been crazy. In universities, it's always been crazy. But the real authoritarian streak where it became sinister was about 2015 onwards. The BLM craziness was very much part of that, but COVID just after, around about the same time, also sent people insane, and it started. It was the catalyst in many ways for all of the societal ills we've got now. We were talking about, I think, the massive rise in ADHD, especially amongst children. The snitch culture of snitching on your neighbours if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. The authoritarian culture. I mean, I remember, and you will remember, at that particular time, I thought it was locking down was crazy and stupid, and the mask clearly didn't work, and people weren't dying, I don't think, in the way that they initially thought they were going to be dying. Yet still we continued with all of this stuff. But the crazy stuff for me was when all the neighbours were outside on the doorstep banging pots and pans, worshipping the NHS, and I thought, oh my God, this symbol of socialist dysfunction, and everybody's there worshipping, and they've got rainbows in the windows with "I love the NHS" and all of that kind of thing. And it was this sense of cultishness that we've had ever since, and you can track it. So we had we had BLM, and then after that it was trans. Everyone thought they were, all the blokes thought they were women, and started going crazy around that kind of thing. We had to mangle the language, and then it was women in prisons and men in women's prisons and God knows what. Then it was the environment and all of the craziness around the environment, and then, for God's sake, it was Hamas. All of this ridiculous, destructive, anti-Western, anti-British, cultish behaviour that was one after another, and it was a different iteration of the same thing. And all of that stuff really went on steroids during lockdown, and don't forget that vulnerable women were with abusive partners in lockdown. Old people were left on their own and lonely. People were drinking heavily just because they were so damn depressed. There was drug abuse. Cancer patients weren't getting the care that they needed because the COVID stuff was put first and foremost above everything else. So much stuff is coming out of this, but as we were saying yesterday, they're still not answering the main question, which is, was it necessary? That's the only question that we need. What were the lockdowns necessary? But they're not actually asking that question, so they're still fudging it. They're still trying to get away with it. They're trying to say, we've got, there's an inquiry here. Look, little people, there's an inquiry here. We're doing this for you, right? Okay, settle down. No, we don't want that. It's not, it's not, yes, Minister, and Sir Humphrey. It's not just an inquiry for the sake of an inquiry. We want answers, but we're not going to get them from this lot.
We're not. I mean, the point is that the real question they should have been asking is whether they should have followed the scientists that issued the Great Barrington Declaration and gone down that route, or gone down the lockdown route, which they did. And they're not going to ask that question because they know the answer and they know they were wrong. Now, in this rape gang inquiry, which is they're talking about just now, I mean, if it's going to go the same kind of way as this COVID inquiry has gone, I don't see any point in holding it, do you?
No, I don't even think it's going to get, well, I mean, at the moment, they can't find someone to head it because...
Would you head it? Would you head it?
I'd head it tomorrow. Yeah, as an academic, I'd head it tomorrow. I'd ask all the right questions. I'd get all the victims. It would be completely victim-centered. I'd tear it all apart. I'd tear their whole culture apart. I've just written a chapter on it, actually, on the rape gangs in Greater Manchester, where I'm from. So I'm from Bury. And Rochdale, Oldham, they're just a stone's throw away from those places, but it's also places like Bolton and Huddersfield as well. So the Muslim cultural influence in those places has just completely changed those towns over the last 30 or 40 years. So I'd certainly head it, and I'd certainly tear it apart. Don't forget as well, I've interviewed. I interviewed on New Culture Forum a victim from Sheffield, actually, which was harrowing. Just the testimony there was just utterly appalling. So it's insane that this stuff has gone on. It's a terrible indictment on our society, on our culture, and that cultural sensitivities were privileged over basic safeguarding, and I'm talking about really basic safeguarding. So, for example, Ken, I was writing about Rotherham and Rochdale and Oldham. One kid, preteen, went into a police station and said, "Look, I'm being sexually abused," and they told her to come back when she wasn't drunk. Now, she's a child, she's a preteen, she's drunk, there's a red flag for you. She left the police station and was immediately gang raped by a gang of Pakistani men. So these children were failed, and it's still going on, of course, were failed at every single level possible. And yet this joke of a government cannot get it together to even get someone to head an inquiry to get to some kind of truth. It's utterly appalling. Like I say, it's an obscene farce.
Well, the truth is that the Labour Party do not want any inquiry which is going to report before the next general election.
They're kicking it down. They're kicking the can down the road. Yeah.
They don't. They know what would come out if of the inquiry if it were truthful, and they know that if they did that, that the chances at the next general election, which I think are probably almost nil now, but really would be nil after that. So it's not going to happen. You mentioned there about the trans issues. Is that not an example of one where we've actually started to win? I mean, I think that with the Cass report and with what's happened since, I almost think that one's done now. Do you not?
Well, it's funny. Some days I do, and some days I don't. It depends. It depends what I encounter in the culture war. Yeah, I think you're right in the sense that the Cass report, for any sensible person, completely and totally put that to bed. And there was a sense of we went into a period of madness for all of the reasons I talked about before, actually. But having said that, Eric Kaufman has just produced some research on the subject, and he said that it's good news as far as young people are concerned. They're not identifying as trans anymore. The numbers have gone right down in undergraduates, but I still think there's something there, and I don't think it'll ever completely go away. So, for example, the Oxford University student, that little kind of fresh-faced creature who looked like the Milky Bar Kid, who was saying, "Put the Zios in the ground." Viewers will know who he is. The pictures that emerged.
Palestinian flag around his neck, yeah.
Palestinian flag around his neck, but makeup, nail varnish, and all of that kind of thing. So all of these things go together. It becomes a hardcore of extremists. So the trans stuff goes with the Hamas stuff, goes with the BLM stuff. It's all of that kind of stuff together. Importantly, it goes with the Islamist stuff, the Islamist lobby in this country, which is massive and which is powerful and which is very frightening, actually. I think we have to be very honest about that. So the hard left, the nutters and the Islamists together, that's where the trans stuff is now. So they might not have the numbers, but they are as crazy as ever. And I think it's a mistake to think of them in silos because all of these people work together, and the environmental, the green nutters as well. I think they all go together. So we have to think of them as one body of people.
Yeah. You went down to Festival Ideas last weekend?
Yeah. I was doing loads of stuff there. Yeah.
How did it go?
It was great. I mean, it's one of those things that is a breath of fresh air, actually, especially where my background, which is academia, which was anything but free speech. It was completely the opposite of free speech. So one of the things about the Battle of Ideas is it's huge, it's massive. So many people there, and so many events going on simultaneously. It's a superb Claire Fox and her team, Alistair and Jeff, absolutely amazing piece of organisation, and so much great stuff. So I was doing a variety of things. I did something on are the arts too politicised? I think there's a one-word answer to that, and it isn't no. I did something, again, bizarrely, because I'm quite interested. I'm interested in crime fiction, but I did something on true crime, which was, again, it was a really good discusussion. But the highlight of the show for me was the Thought Police podcast, which we did with Mike Graham, Kevin O'Sullivan, Peter Blexley, the ex Scotland Yard copper, and Intel Lady, who does impressions of Angela Rayner and other members of the government, who is just hilarious. I mean, she had everybody in stitches. But we were really pushing free speech as far as it could go, I think, in that podcast. It was hilarious. I mean, it was a packed auditorium, and it was just genuinely laugh out loud funny and irreverent. So it was really good. It was such a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I mean, it's another example of yet an organisation. You mentioned Free Speech Union and so on. there are quite a number of organisations which are moving on in the kind of general same direction, not identically, but side by side, and moving in the same kind of direction. And equally, we now have three or four parties, political parties, who are the same. Now, of course, it's not so easy for political parties to go stay in their lane and carry on as the organisations can, because at the end of the day, they know that they'll be competing for votes. I mean, how do you see that in terms of where the sort of right of centre parties lie at the minute?
Well, I think, first of all the intellectual and emotional energy is with us. All the ideas that are anything, any idea that means anything, is coming from the right and the kind of centre right, the kind of reform area. I think that's true because well, you just have to look at the polls. I mean, they're extraordinary. I mean, I've never seen anything like it in my life, and I'm 54 years old. Okay, so something is happening which is akin to a revolution in a way. I think what's happening is we've come to the end of an era. We've come to the end of this progressive, leftist, Blairite, globalist, socialist, quasi-communist era, call it what you want, all of those things, right? We've come to the end of that era, and it has fundamentally failed us on every single level. Okay, I think it's taken such a long time for people to understand that, but all of the things we've just been talking about, the C enquiry, I'm not going to say the word, the grooming gangs fiasco.
I think we did slip it in a couple of times, actually. We maybe doomed already.
Oh, maybe we're doomed already. If there's only 5 people that watch it, then we'll know. But all of that kind of stuff, I think people are beginning to be as angry as they should be. I don't think they're there yet, but all you have to do is look out of the window and see what's happening to a town centre near you. Okay. See what's happening to your high street. See what's happening to the economy. See what's happening to culture. See what mass immigration is doing to us. Now, I think the British people are beginning to look at this and beginning to say, oh, well, something is wrong here. It's taken an awful long time because we do respond to these things very slowly, but I don't think we're in a situation now where we can afford to close our eyes to it. Okay, so I think all of that stuff is happening, and that's why something like Battle of Ideas is so important, because it's taking all of those issues on head on. And, political parties like Reform are doing exactly the same thing. And bearing in mind how far we've moved just in 2 or 3 years on something like mass immigration, for example. So when Nigel and people like Peter Whittle and me and Rafe Hadelman-Koo and all of those people were talking directly about mass immigration and what we should do and how we should cut it, especially illegal immigration, but also deal with legal immigration, we were just shouted down as racists and Nazis and fascists and all of those which are now meaningless slurs. Okay, there is no currency in those words anymore. Okay, because people know you cannot have 1.2 million gross coming into the country at least every year, year in, year out. You cannot have up to 1,000, sometimes more people coming on boats illegally every single day. You just cannot, we cannot cope with that. You cannot have people from cultures who have a very, very different attitude, 1 to women, but 2 to children, filling our hotels in every city centre in the country. You just simply cannot have that. And people are, well, 1, they're angry, okay, but 2, they're frightened as well. And I think that combination is actually a healthy combination, because it's only when anger is one thing, but it's only when you're frightened with it, you're frightened for your culture, you're frightened for your wife and child, that you will then do something. You will get out to the ballot box, you will make that vote, you will make a change, because you want to dismantle the Uni Party. It isn't just the Labour Party. The Conservative Party are complicit in all of this kind of thing. You know, they're in power for 14 years, and it pains some of us to say that, but it's absolutely true. You know, so we need something different. We need this revolution. We need reform to be at the forefront. We need them to be making change. We need bold policies. And we need a party that is actually going to do something, because in many ways, I think many of us who do this for a living, we know this is last chance saloon for our country. So what's happened is all the energy has gone to the right. Okay. The difference is, I think that's been the way for quite a while, actually, but the difference is we are now bringing people over with us, and we have critical mass, as the polls tell us.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a sea change in opinion even in the last years. I stood in June of last year for the party, and so we're out canvassing and so on. And the reaction you get, and if you take a street stall out now, the reaction you get from the public is completely different. You don't have people walking past saying, "Oh, yeah, racist" or whatever. It just doesn't happen anymore. People are now almost united in the fact that we are the future, and that they need us to come through. Saying, you know, we're talking about cultural relativism and the fact that we had to have all cultural aspects there's no ranking of them in terms of quality, that they're all the same, they all have equal value, and that's where we are, and it's hard to see where we go from there.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one, and the thing is, we have to be brave, and we really have to push back on it, and we have to re-establish standards, and we have to champion Western culture as the pinnacle of civilization. Essentially, I think that's what we have to do, because this stuff is really dangerous. Okay, but it's not just about the culture we make; it's about cultural practices as well. So, for example, female genital mutilation was unknown in this country until mass immigration. But people are squeamish about calling this out because they are frightened of criticizing other cultures. And again, it's the same kind of thing, Ken. We never used to have acid attacks, did we? Especially on women. We never used to have running machete fights in the streets. Again, these are, and the Pakistani rape gangs, again, is another example of this, where people are frightened to call this stuff out or to even criticize it because of cultural relativism, because we have it drummed into us that all cultures are equal, and patently they are not equal, you know. And we are seeing the degrading of our society and the degrading of our culture, because if we stand up for it, there is a price to pay. Okay, so I was cancelled from my career in academia. 25 years in academia. I was essentially because I did that. I stood up against Islamism. I said that trans women are men, you know, and all of that kind of thing. So there comes a time where we do have to be brave, and as we were saying before, there are more of us now. People are genuinely frightened. People are genuinely angry. Both of those things are really good. It does make people speak out. It does make people stand up. And we do have to celebrate Western culture. We have to celebrate this country. We have to be patriotic. We have to do all of those things that our parents, actually, it was the most natural thing in the world to do. We seem to have gone on this societal political detour over the last 30 or 40 years, in which common sense and self-preservation have become, I don't know, you're a pariah if you practice any of those things, and we need to be in a situation of, thankfully we're getting back there, where enough of us are saying, look, no, actually we are patriotic, we care about our country, we care about our children, we care about women, we care about safety, we care about our history, we don't want lies, and we are not comparable to primitive African history, heritage and cultures. We are a different culture, and we must stand firm and celebrate that and shout it from the rooftops.
Absolutely right. Philip, thank you very much indeed for being on the podcast. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. I hope you have too. Yeah. And I'm sure our viewers will enjoy it more to the point. So thanks once again for coming on, and I'll send you the link once it's all up and running.
Fabulous. Thanks, Ken, very much. I've really enjoyed it.
Cheers.